I always say that very, very world-class, elite, high-performance javelin throwers, they all have like a superpower. And that superpower allows them to be less than optimal in certain movements. But ultimately, the superpower masks some of the issues that eventually lead to injury. For example, we talk about Bro Greer. Bro Greer threw 91 meters. He was soft on the front leg. At the point of touchdown on the front leg, he was in a good position, but then he collapsed. But he was able to get a lot of speed into the javelin, so it worked for him. But you wouldn't build your model around that. And there's lots of outliers in the sport. We talked about Backley. Backley used to push off the back leg, and he threw 91. So, and he's a UK record holder, and, it was a phenomenal javelin thrower. So you would never say, Steve, you're doing it wrong. Thorkildson, open like this. What did he ended up with? A surgery on his hip blade. I've spoken to Andreas in the past about it, but ultimately the thing that stopped him from staying at the level he was at pre-2012 was his left hip because of the way he threw. But again, he threw 91 and he won 2 Olympic gold medals. So it's not criticism, it's just observation. He take advantage of his phenomenal physicality in his upper body, and he was phenomenal, right? You could bench 200 kilos, could do crucifix on the rings and all this sort of stuff. Amazing, amazing. He built his technique around his ability to do those things. So he talked a lot about stretch reflex across the torso. He believed that benching heavy allowed him to create more stretch reflex. Then he adapted his technique to allow him to use that. That's my interpretation. Thomas Roller, for example. People always focus on Thomas Roller is early with his throwing hand, but then Thomas Roller always released the javelin further in front of his head than anybody else. So he sacrificed a bit of pull here, but he made up for it here. So actually the net result was the pull was still the same, but he also had extreme external rotation in his shoulder. So clearly there was some probably anatomical limiting factors that stopped him from staying longer here. But he worked out that because he was a little bit early here, he was able to be longer at the front, and the net result is he still threw nearly 94 and won an Olympic gold. So there are lots of different examples of people. The one thing I will always come back to is there's one guy that did everything well and then didn't really get injured. He got injured once, seriously injured once in his career, but that was a training accident. It wasn't because of javelin throwing. So he got the silver in the World Championship, silver at the Olympics in '88, and then from that point onwards he won the next 3 Olympics. And he was still throwing in 2006 when he got the bronze medal at the European Championships in Gothenburg. Career spanned certainly more than 20 years with very little injury. Why did he have very little injury? His technique was extremely efficient. Injury risk is high in javelin anyway, we know that, but it's higher if you are biomechanically inefficient in certain movements. But if you're going to have a system and a model that is based on sound biomechanical principles, then you have to have a mechanical performance model that fits with that.